Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Birch Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Chickadee on snowy birch tree. I'm going to be sipping on my eggnog, and if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you can find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you could certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, cobalt blue, burnt umber, which I will call brown, Mars black, deep yellow, and fire red. And of course you can switch up those colors as well if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 12 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 1 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you through your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint and all the tools and good stuff in between, so that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting, so you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through your painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what I'm going to do for the first step is I'm going to be painting my sky. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush, and I'm going to use every color on my palette. So I'm going to be using blue, white, brown, black, red, and yellow. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to start the top of my sky really light blue. We're going to move that down into where our sun is either setting or rising, and then it'll get nice and dark as it goes down towards the floor of the forest. So how I'm going to start this is I'm going to pre-mix myself a light blue color. So I'm going to just take a teeny tiny bit of my blue and mix in some white paint with it. So I want this to go really, really light blue. So I don't want it to be white, but I definitely want it to be on the very light side. So I'm adding quite a bit of white, and you need hardly any blue to make that happen. And then I just spin it around. This is about where I'm going for my light blue. I'm going to start up at the top of my canvas, and I'm just going to be applying it with a left to right brush stroke. So I didn't do anything else other than go left to right for this top part. I'm going to bring this down to almost my halfway mark on my canvas, so just kind of thinning this out so I have a nice smooth layer of paint in through there. And then I'm just picking up that light blue, and I'm just going to continue to travel till I'm about almost halfway down the canvas. So a little bit further here. Once I get about, I'm going to go a little bit further than this, right about in through here, I'm going to start picking up white paint so I can transition down into a nice light area. So I just picked up some white paint, and what this in essence is doing is kind of working that light blue off of my brush so I can put in place my sun colors without them turning too distorted and too green. Because if you have blue on your brush and you go into like yellow, you'll end up with green. So this kind of works that off of my brush. And once I've come down, I would say almost to the 2/3 mark. Now that I've got this on here, now what I'm going to start to do is incorporate my sun colors. So I'm going to have my sun right about here, which is going to be my brightest area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of red paint on my brush, and I'm going to kind of work the exterior of that area with the red on my dirty brush. I did not wash my brush. I just am adding a little bit of red into that sky. My paint is is a very fluid type of paint. It's a student grade paint, so it stays moist for quite a while. So that's how I'm able to get these colors to really blend in and talk to one another and not dry too quickly on me. If you're working with a heavier bodied paint, you could certainly add a little bit of moisture or a liquid medium in it. Now what I'm going to do without washing my brush is I'm going to pick up a touch of yellow paint and I'm going to start working my way in towards where I want my sun to go. So just a little bit of yellow paint, getting it to work in with these reds. And I know that, again, I'm going to have my sun somewhere in this vicinity. So that's where I'm going to preserve my really light color. And you can get these sunset colors to go, or sunrise colors to go as vibrant as you want or as soft as you want. And I'm just kind of leaving that little bit of a light area where I want my sun to go. And then I'm going to add a touch more red to my brush, and I'm going to start working my way down into the darkness down below. So just getting this red and yellow to transition down into the darker area of the forest. And in a second, I'm going to start picking up brown. So without washing my brush, right now I'm going to start picking up brown, and I'm going to get myself to go down into the forest floor with this brown paint. So I am, as I'm going along, I'm getting my colors to blend in with one another. So I am overlapping them from one to the other. If you feel that, like I feel like I want a little bit of yellow in here, so I just picked up a little bit of red and yellow. So at any time as you're doing this process, if you feel that you want a little bit more of another color, like you want more yellow or more red, just incorporate it. This is your landscape. You can make it go as light or as dark as you want, as vibrant as you want, or as subtle as you want. I might add a little bit more yellow to my around my sun in a minute, but right now just kind of getting this on here. And I continue to use a left to right brush stroke. At the very bottom is where I'm going to start incorporating a touch of black, but first I want to just make sure that I get the other colors on before I introduce black onto my brush, because once that black is on, I'm going to have to wash it if I want to do anything else. So that's looking pretty good to me. I think I might actually add, before I go into my black, I might add, just make sure I get all of this nice and blended. I think I'm going to add a touch more yellow into here. So just put a little bit more yellow on my brush. I think I want this a little bit deeper as it's reaching down into that forest. And I might put a little bit more on top of it too. So this is one of those things that you just kind of keep playing with it. Your sun is going to look more vibrant the darker the colors are that are surrounding it. So if you want yours to be really kind of powerful and really pop out from behind those trees, you just want those sun setting colors or sunrise colors to be nice and rich and deep right around it. And I'm going to have the edges of my sun nice and soft. So I just kind of keep letting my paint just kind of softly blend with those light colors right around the sun. And then you just kind of keep tweaking it as much as you want to. And in a second, I will get that I'll put some of that darkness down at the bottom of the forest. But again, just wanted to make sure that I got this as rich looking as I wanted it, because I know that it's going to add a lot to the painting once those trees are in front of it. And now I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to take a little bit of black and brown on my brush at the same time and just get the bottom of this forest to be pretty dark. I don't need it to go all the way black, but adding that little bit of darkness down at the bottom is going to add some good dimension or depth to that forest floor. And you keep tweaking yours all you want. If you feel like you want to do another layer on it, feel free to do so. If not, that's totally fine. We're going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your sky done, you can put your large brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be doing our background trees. So I'll refer to, we have background trees, and then we'll do the two big front birch trees later. But we're going to do our background trees. I do recommend that you make sure that your canvas is dry before you start this step. So this is that time where you get to take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So I'm going to be using, I just dropped my paper towel. Now I have it back again. So I'm going to be using my medium paintbrush. The colors that I'm using are black, brown, and white. And I'm going to be doing this in a very carefree, light, sketcherly type of way. I want them to just resemble lots of possibly out of focus or distant forest trees that don't have leaves on them. So I'm going to be doing a lot of vertical type of stripes or strokes. I will do some that, you know, kind of have the implication of branches, a little sideways and maybe a little diagonal, but I don't really want to do a whole lot of detail, so I'm going to just be nice, light, sketcherly, and quick. So the colors that I will be using are white, black, and brown, and I will always just kind of be alternating picking up those three colors. One time I'll have more than the other on my brush and so on and so forth, so that way I have a lot of different colors that happen on here. I'm going to be going fast and I'm going to have a lot of paint on my brush. So if you're going about this process and it doesn't feel like it's flowing the way that you want, like you're not getting a nice fluid brush stroke, you can do as I do, and I dip my brush in my water every now and again, which puts additional fluidity on my brush, which allows me to get these longer type of brush strokes. And I'm just kind of going in a vertical manner. I'm not pushing really hard because I don't want these to be too wide. I don't want them to take away from the bigger trees that we're going to be putting on in a little bit. I also don't want to put too many in front of my sun. I'll put a couple, you know, maybe just giving a little hint of them being in front or, you know, on this side of the sun, but I'm not really going to do too many. I don't want them to go too dark either, so if you have a lot of black ones, just pick up a little bit more white going through the process, and that'll kind of dull them down. Think of these as just big long pieces of grass that you can have coming in different directions, and they can overlap one another at times. Like I said, you can also just pick up a little bit of water on your dirty brush, and that will give you some really nice, not necessarily all translucent, but they will definitely be on the lighter side and kind of take up some of the look of the colors behind them. So again, the colors I'm picking up are brown, black, and white, and any variation thereof. I'm going to make them a little bit darker. In a second, I'll bring some darker ones down towards the bottom of the forest floor, but you can see I'm just going a lot of vertical lines, and you know, not all super duper straight. I have some that are kind of leaning over and going in front of one another, just to give the impression that there's maybe some branches and stuff back there that are going in different directions. And at the bottom here, I'm going to do a little bit more of the black and the brown, just so I can make sure that it looks like it's going towards the forest floor. And as you can see, I was very carefree, but sometimes when you're doing that carefree type of brush stroke, you may find that you have, I'll call them floaters in your sky. So if you have too many that don't disconnect, like you might have one that just kind of like stops right here, you'll want to make sure that that connects to something, because in the big scheme of things, you wouldn't necessarily have a lone soldier branch just floating in the sky somewhere. So you can certainly have fun with making sure that you connect you know, any necessary trunks or branches to other ones. But that's just something, one of those things that happens during these carefree type of paint stroke steps. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your background trees done, that's looking pretty good for me. And if you do one that you're not sold on, don't worry, we've got the two big birch trees that we can disguise and kind of use them to hide other things if we need to, and snow on their trees and stuff like that. So I'm gonna put this or wash this medium brush when I'm done my trees, and I'm gonna get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna put it on our front trees. So it's gonna be the big two birch trees that are gonna be occupying a lot of area on the canvas. I'm gonna be using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, and white. So I know in our heads birch trees can tend to be on the whiter side, but birch trees can really fluctuate from white to dark gray. Their iconic kind of markings are those little black birch bark marks, and we'll put those on later. But I like to, when I'm building my birch trees, I like to start with like a gray and use gray with brown and black and white to put that base coat on. So I'm not going to pre-mix a color. I'm going to just be using those three colors on my brush at the same time. So I'll have one of the trunks maybe lighter than the other, one might be a little bit more brown than the other, and it ends up looking really nice and natural. I'm going to put the two main trunks in place, and then we'll branch off after that. So I'm going to load my brush with brown, a little bit of black. I know black can really easily take over, and a good amount of white on my brush. I'm going to give myself some markers. I'm going to do this left one first. So I'm going to come in from the top of my canvas, maybe about 3 inches or so, somewhere in here, and then maybe about another 1.5 inches. That's going to be about the width of this particular branch in through here. And then down at the bottom, I'm in about 1 inch, and then in maybe another 2.5, 3 inches. So that's going to be the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect these two. So black, brown, and white. And it's a tree, so it can have some wiggle to it. Birch trees are kind of on the tall, straight side, but they're still a tree. So there's going to have some kind of movement or wiggle within the tree. So don't feel the need to make it a straight telephone pole type of tree. And if you run through some areas where that background is lighter or darker, or it might be getting a little confused with the tree next to it, your background trees, just incorporate it, just, maybe paint over it, or, have it, fade off into the background, whatever, works. And then I just kind of lightly go back up and down and get this to blend in a little bit. It doesn't have to blend perfectly, but you can see just having these multiple tones in here really makes it look nice and natural. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my next one. So this is black, brown, and white. I'm going to come over to the right of this, maybe about another 2 inches, and then another 2 inches from that. So I'm almost about center in my canvas. I'm going to put a little bit more white on my brush so we can all see this here. So that's about the top of that particular one. And then on the bottom, I'm going to come over from this one, maybe about 1/2 inch to 1 inch, and then I'm coming over almost like halfway left to right in my canvas, the bottom of my canvas, somewhere in through here. This is going to be the bottom of this tree, and then I will connect this to my top section. And again, doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to have this one kind of having a good amount of movement to it, so maybe I'll have this one kind of coming over to the right, and then snake back over here just a little bit. And I'm using a lot of paint on my brush, so that way I can have these long kind of continual brush strokes that travel pretty darn far. And because I'm using all 3 colors on my brush, again, I'm getting it to kind of blend on the fly, and you can see I've got 2 different tones going on, which is fabulous. It's going to make it look really nice and natural. I think I'm going to just kind of make sure that I've got the top part over here the way that I want it. And of course you can keep, bending it and twisting it whatever way that you want throughout this process. I'm just going to kind of get this to go over here and blend it in and through here, and then just get this to merge down into this base in through here. And again, birch trees, they don't have to kick out too much at the bottom, but I still like to have mine kind of coming out just a little bit. And now that I've got those main kind of trunks in place, maybe this comes out just a little bit further in through here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to branch out. So I'm going to have a couple of main branches. One of them is going to come up in through this direction, so I'm going to come, I would say maybe 3 or 4 inches over here, and these ones are going to be a little bit more slender. And then I'm going to have this up above my sun a little bit, so maybe in this area in through here, and then I'll just get it to kind of kick out and get this to meet in through here. And again, doesn't have to be perfect, just something that looks like it kind of works its way into the tree in a pretty natural kind of way. And then I need a branch for my cute bird to sit on. So I'm going to have my branch coming off in through here, but I want my bird to kind of be sitting in this vicinity. So if I would say this is about halfway up or down my canvas, I'm going to have the end of that branch kind of a little bit above that. I'm going to have this kind of coming in through here. Again, I'm going to have my bird sitting on here, so I'm going to strategically kind of place where I want this, and then maybe I'll have it kicking down like this. And of course, you can have another little branch coming off the bottom if you wanted to. And then I'm going to have another branch kind of coming off, maybe a little bit above my sun. So maybe somewhere in through here, I've got another branch coming off. And then maybe this one just kind of snakes a little bit like this. And then I'll have a little tiny piece maybe kicking up in through here. And I'm going to have maybe one or two more pretty solid branches. And then I'm just going to go in for some teeny tiny branches. So I'm going to have another one coming off of this tree, and I'm going to shoot it in that direction over there. So I'm going to start maybe somewhere between these two, and then just have a branch kind of coming up, and I think I'm going to have this one coming behind this branch in, or that trunk in through there, and just something like this. And the branches on a birch tree, sometimes these smaller branches tend to be a little bit darker. So as I work my way towards the smaller branches, which I'm going to do right now, I'm going to use a little bit more black. I will lighten up the center of this one a little bit in a minute, but I'm going to put these smaller branches on right now. So I just picked up more black on my dirty brush, and then I'm just going to kind of maneuver a couple of little branches coming out. As I go work my way towards the skinnier branches, I lift off on the pressure on my brush. So that way I can utilize the tip of my brush to give myself some skinnier branches. You could certainly, if that's not working for you, you could certainly utilize your smaller brush. Again, I'm just saving my room in through here to have my birdie. And then let's see what else. I think I'm going to have a couple of branches coming off of this one in through here. So these dark ones really sit nice in front of your background. So if you want to add some good diversity of these smaller branches, just add quite a bit of black to them, and that's going to get them to sit really in front of your landscaped background. And I'm thinking that's good for the number of branches that I want. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick up some more white on my dirty brush and just kind of lighten up any of the center areas of these trees that I feel would benefit from being a little bit lighter. And if you have a ton of black on your brush, like I felt like I just had a little bit too much black on my brush, so I did end up washing it and using a little bit of white plus brown or whatever's on your dirty brush, but mostly white. And this is going to give me a little bit of a lighter area in the part of the trunk that would stick out the most to the viewer. So this will help to give your tree a little bit of dimension as the viewer is looking at it. You could also put a little bit more darkness on the left and the right edges of the tree. So if you're going about this and you're like, oh, well, that's not bringing it light enough, or I'm not seeing enough diversity in it, you can certainly add a bit of darkness on the left or the right sides of it. We'll be adding a little bit more detail to it as well when we do the birch marks, but right now this will just kind of help you to get that the structure of it on there and get these branches to pop out, or get the shape of the trunk to take form. And then once you feel like you've got it, and again, it doesn't have to be smooth. You can certainly you can see I'm just kind of using the side of my brush to rub in a little bit of extra lightness on the front part of the tree. And if your trees went too dark on you, you can certainly, feel free to add as much lightness as you want. But this is looking pretty good to me, so I might let it dry for a minute, and if I feel like I want to do any tweaks to it, I certainly will. But we are going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry your medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting the base coat for our bird. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The color I'm using is white. So I like to, when I'm doing vibrant colors like this, especially on birds. Sometimes you'll see me often use white as my base, especially if I'm building it on top of something. So the white will help with the paint be as bright as it can be when you have that as the base coat underneath. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be using white paint. I like to teach painting birds in a very generic way most of the time, which is two basic shapes. A shape of a circle and a shape of an egg. The circle represents the head and the egg represents the body, with the pointy part of the egg going where the tail starts. So you can use that thought process to building any bird, be it a flamingo or an eagle or a dove or any other kind. The necks are different, the wings are different, the beaks are different, but they all can start with an egg and a circle. So that's how I'm going to start this little guy. So this is a nice simple bird, chickadee. They come very well proportioned and easy to kind of build. So I'm going to have my bird sitting on this branch in through here with its body kind of that way and its head that way. So I'm going to start with my my egg as the body. I'm going to start this right about in through here and kind of bring it over in this direction. My body is going to be on the other side, or the tail part is going to be on the other side. So I'm going to bring this down, something like that. If I was to finish my egg, it would be hidden behind this branch. So I'm going to just leave it like that. You could paint it in front if you want to see the back of your bird, but I'm going to leave it like that. And then I'm going to put my circle up in through here. So I'm going to go up probably about, I would say, an inch or two above here, and then I'm going to cross it over into my main body. So the left part of my circle comes almost as far out as my egg in through here. So let me just kind of get this a little bit darker so you can see it. And then the right part is a little bit, maybe about a half of an inch shy of how far out that right side of the egg goes. And then you can just paint these in with white paint, these two sections. I'm going to paint both of these, the circle and the egg, in with just white paint. We have to finesse the edges and make it the shape of this particular bird, but right now just getting this main coat on. And if your white isn't 100% covering, don't worry about that. This is just really intended to be kind of like a primer coat. So these particular birds, they don't have much of a neck, or the head kind of really blends into the neck. So I'm going to take the circle over here and give it a nice transition line and just get rid of this little indent in through there. So something like that is going to get rid of that transition line. I'm going to put a little bit of a beak on in through here. So about halfway, or maybe 2/3 of the way down the circle, I'm going to bring this out maybe just about, I would say, 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch. The beak actually will travel into the face a little bit. So this is just really getting us started with just the tip of the beak in through there. And then I need to put a tail on the other side of my on the other side of the branch. So I'm going to come in from here, maybe to the left, maybe about 1/2 of an inch to an inch. I'm going to have this coming down in through here, and then I'll have a little bit coming in this vicinity as well. So it's a little bit wider at the bottom of the tail than it is at the top where it meets the branch. And then I just make sure that I have a decent coat of paint on here. Again, it doesn't have to be where you can't see the under coat or the under painting, but if you can get it pretty, pretty solid, great. If not, no worries. And then we're going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your base coat for your bird painted in, you can put this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our birch marks on our birch trees and any little bark-esque kind of stuff that we want to do. So I'm going to be using my small brush. You could certainly use your medium brush too if you're feeling fancy and you're feeling like you want some bigger marks. But I'm going to use my small brush. And I love the chaos on birch trees. There's different species of birch trees, and some have really systematic type of marks, and others are really chaotic and kind of more on the wild side, and those are the ones that I steer towards. So what I'm going to do, I have black paint on my brush. I'm going to be putting some chaotic little marks, but I do want to give the illusion or impression that the tree is kind of round. So every now and again you'll see I do a little round or a curved kind of line. But how I like to start these is I let my brush just kind of skip along around the tree and start my marks, and then I build them from there. So you'll see I'm going to go kind of fast when I start this. So I just kind of allow myself to just kind of go down that tree, making some marks. I'll make them more finessed in a little bit, but right now just kind of not thinking about, just kind of being real carefree and just skipping my brush around. And then once I've got that done, that kind of gives me a little bit of a roadmap. So now that I've got that done, now I just put a little bit more black on my brush. I don't know if I told you the colors I'm going to use in this step, black, brown, and white, but I'm starting with black. And then once I've got that done, then what I do is I loaded my brush a little bit more with black paint, and then I can finesse these marks, add any additional ones that I may want. You can put some along the side. You can put these little like faint stripy kind of marks. You can leave them small if you want to. I'm going to add some additional information in a minute, but right now I just put some more black on my brush, and you can certainly, I like having some kind of creep along around the sides, so feel free to have fun with that. For me, the biggest thing is just being really carefree with it, so that way it doesn't look like a machine did it, it just looks like Mother Nature did it. So you can have little tiny marks, you can have big marks, you can have, almost like holes that look, little like something has dug at it. You can have little streaks. So feel free, to just kind of explore whatever your brush did initially in that chaotic way. Some people like to use palette knives in order to do this, because that will also give you that really chaotic type of natural look to it. I know that some areas can look like there's bigger areas. So the black marks are made from the bark kind of peeling away from the exterior area of the tree. So it has like this dark interior to it. So that's where this darkness comes to. And again, you'll see I'm kind of twisting my brush a little bit, sometimes using that curved type of stroke. So that will, again, lead the viewer to understand that maybe there is a curve or a bend to this tree. And I like to put some of them around the edges. And then once I've got all of my birch marks wherever I want them to be, and you can see I'm kind of adding some along the way every now and again. If I feel like I want, some extra little bits here and there, I add them into it. And sometimes you might find that, you accidentally get a shape that looks like something, kind of like when we were, young kids looking up at the clouds and we see dinosaur shapes. Sometimes you'll see a dinosaur shape in your birch tree too. And then I might add a little bit more darkness at the bottom of these branches as they're coming out of the tree, because I know that sometimes that is a nice dimensional kind of element. And once I've got them on there, now I get to kind of explore the other textures to the tree and maybe give a little bit of a three-dimensional look to the bark on the birch tree. So I just put white and brown on my brush, and I like to do this like at the top, maybe a little more white so you can see it, at the top of some of these marks. So what this will do is this will make it look like the bark is kind of peeling away. So if you can put a little light area at the top of some of these black marks, that will give you a little illusion that the bark is kind of peeling away. And you can put these light like streaks going throughout the tree. You can always put like white and brown on your brush and just kind of give these kind of curved left to right rubbing type of motions. That's gonna give you more of that natural kind of look, but you don't want to have a lot of paint on your brush when you do it, and this will help you to get that unpredictable kind of look to it where it makes it look really nice and natural. And I'm just going to kind of cruise along up here. Again, these lighter colors that I'm using is just white and brown to give myself a little bit more texture to the tree, to give myself it, you know, maybe making some of these areas look like they've got some little pieces of bark peeling out of them. And you can certainly have as much fun with this as you want. That one's looking pretty good. I'm going to move to the next one with just a little bit of white and brown on my brush, putting little bits of highlights at the tops of some of these black areas, so it looks like maybe that bark is peeling away a little bit. And again, you can see I'm really just being carefree about this, so this way I've got some natural kind of marks, maybe just rubbing that brush a little bit in this curved motion with a little bit of tiny bit of paint on my brush, and that will help to make it look nice and natural. And then I will just keep kind of fiddling with these birch marks until I feel that they are doing everything that I want them to. And don't forget, we've got snow coming too. So if you do something and you're like, whoa, that didn't come out the way that I had anticipated or wanted it to, know that we can certainly hide or disguise things with a bit of snow. So that is always a fun element to incorporate on these natural type of elements, because we get to utilize it to our advantage. And then just kind of keep fiddling. You don't have to put a lot on the branches, because the branches I find when I'm looking at them on birch trees, they don't really have too much of these marks going on, because they're new and the bark hasn't peeled away off of those little branches yet. So if you want to incorporate a couple, great. If not, no big deal. And then we're going to be using the same small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the eye and the beak on our bird. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, blue, and white. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to start with a little bit of black paint on my brush. You don't need much. You could even water it down a little bit so it's a nice thin ink consistency. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to color my beak, which we've already established the exterior shape of it, so something like this. I'm bringing it back to the head, and then once I meet where the head is, I'm going to bring it in just a little bit with these little kind of feathery type of brush strokes. So the exterior edge of it is going to look like it's kind of merging into the feathers around it. So something like this. So I just brought it in a real little bit, in almost like a little arcing type of motion. And then I'm going to put my eye is going to be about in the center of the head, so somewhere about here. So the top of my eye is a little bit higher than the top of my beak, and then the bottom of my eye is I would say maybe about halfway up that beak, somewhere like this. And then I'm just going to paint it black, and what I'm going to do is I'm also going to connect it to the beak with a little black marking of sorts. These birds have these cute little stripes between their eye and their beak. So I'm just wiggling my brush a little bit, giving myself these little tiny black feathers that are a really cool marking. And then on the back side of the eye, the left-hand side of the eye, I'm going to pull out a couple of little tiny feathers that will just kind of meet the feathers on the head in a little bit. So now that I've got that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to work on my beak. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of gray. So I'm going to use black and white, black and white. I'm just mixing myself like a medium tone gray in through here. So not much. I just need a teeny tiny bit of it. And then once I've got a little tiny bit of it on my brush, I wipe it off on my paper towel. I'm going to give a little bit of a highlight of sorts on the bottom portion of the beak in through here, so I don't cover the whole thing. And then I'm going to, without washing my brush, so right now I have gray paint on my brush, I'm going to pick up some cobalt blue. So I have gray plus cobalt blue on my brush right now, and I'm going to put a little bit of a blue highlight or colored part on the top of the beak in through here. And then I'm going to wash my brush off, or wipe my brush off on my paper towel, pick up a tiny bit of white paint, so an itty bitty bit of white paint on my brush, and then I'm going to give myself a little highlight on the beak, on the top part of the beak, a little kind of white little curve. So a little tiny bit of white paint, and then just swipe a little highlight on it like that. So I'm going to do a similar thing to the eye. So I'm going to pick a little bit of that gray paint up, and I'm going to put a little gray area in the front right side of that eye. So a little gray in through there. I'm going to pick up cobalt blue with my gray and do a blue area in the top left. I'm leaving a little bit of the black around the edges, and now I'm wiping my brush off, picking up a touch of white paint and doing a little sparkle in the eye up at the top right hand part of that blue. So just a little sparkle. So you don't need much, just those little details. And then we are going to be utilizing this same small brush for the next step. So you can do any little finessing that you want, and then you can just wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to do for the next step is I'm going to finish the feathers on my bird. I'm going to use my small brush. Again, you could certainly switch from your small to your medium, wherever your comfort zone is. I'm going to be using yellow, blue, black, white, and maybe a little bit of that gray color as well. So I'm going to start with yellow paint on my brush, and I'm going to color this entire midsection in with yellow paint. So when I do birds or animals, I consciously am moving my brush in the direction of that particular feather or fur or whatever that is. So even though I'm coloring in the entire area with this yellow paint, I'm still utilizing the brush stroke in the direction I want. In this neck area, I want to maintain my head separate from my neck. So I'm going to, when I get up in through here, I'm going to be doing almost like a curved type of section as opposed to straight across. So I'm going to utilize this brush stroke to make it look like there's little maybe feathery type of marks. You can bring it all the way to the edge. We're going to be covering that in a minute with black and blue anyways, but in this little neck area in through here, you can just utilize that rough kind of brush stroke. And if you can still see some of your white underneath, that's great. We're going to be adding another little bit of information in a minute. I'm going to bring this yellow down into the tail as well. So again, you can certainly leave little bits of that white showing, and even if you can still see through some of this paint right now, like I can still see the evidence of a branch underneath, I'm not concerned because I'm going to be doing some shadow down there anyways in a minute. I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to be utilizing that gray color. I'm going to put a little bit of gray on the face, so this way I can utilize white feathers on top of it. So I just put a little bit of gray on my brush, and I'm going to color in the majority of the face with these little feathery brush strokes in with the gray paint. So this way, when I go to put when I want to see texture on those feathers, I can't get any lighter than white. So this gray that I'm putting down is going to help me get some dimension on these feathers that I'm going to put on the face in a minute. So I'm utilizing it at the top of the head as well, and I'm utilizing it all throughout the face. I'm going to be doing blue on the top of the head or the back side of the head, so you don't really need to bring it all the way over there. You can bring it right close to those eyes, something like this, and then close to that beak. And again, I'm just using that brush stroke in the direction I feel that they would be headed. So then I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put my dark areas on now. So washing and drying my brush, the next color I'm picking up is black and brown. So I have black and brown on my brush at the same time. I'm going to be doing putting in place where I feel all the black markings are, and then I'll put some little shadows and stuff in. So I know that there's like a black marking around the neck, So I've got my black and my brown, and I'm going to do this really carefree kind of brush stroke that's going to pull that darkness into the yellow and into the gray, and I'm going to bring it all the way up this front side of the face. So you can utilize black and brown or a combination thereof. They've got these cute little black kind of stripe underneath their beak. So I'm going to put some of this black in through here and just make sure that it kind of connects to the little feathers that are going to be next to it in through here. So this is looking pretty good. I'm also going to be putting, they have a little bit coming up this front and through here. And then I'm going to put a little bit down this back side. There's going to be the evidence of a little bit of the blue wing, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here. So this is going to be kind of my shadowy areas. I'm putting a little bit down this right hand side. I'm going to put blue in a minute, but this yellow or the black right now is going to help me to start this dark area. Same thing with on the back of the head. I hardly have any paint on my brush right now, just kind of getting these darker areas to emerge and to allow me to build the colorful part on top of them. Right now I'm going to pick up black plus a little bit of yellow, and I did not wash my brush, so I want to, I think I'm going to wipe it off a little bit more. So black, so more yellow than black, but I definitely have some black on my brush. I'm going to pull some darker streaks down into this tail. So it's really important that you don't have too much black on your brush, but you can have as much yellow as you want. And you might see the evidence of green when you do this, because a lot of times these two colors, yellow and black, will give a resemblance of green when it comes off, which is exactly what happens on these birds too. So they also have a little black tuft of feathers in through here. So again, mostly yellow, just a little bit of black on my brush. I'm going to put this little area of this darkness that they have on the inside of their chest in through here. I still have the black and yellow on my brush. Down in through here, I'm more concerned about there being a little shadow down in through here. We're going to have snow covering this edge in a little bit, but I just want to make sure it works together. And then I want this black area over here to blend in with my yellow. So I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel right now, so I hardly have any black on there. I might have a little bit of remnants, but not a lot. And then I just want to make sure that these two areas really talk well together. So mostly yellow, hardly any black, but there might be a little bit of black on my brush where you can see the evidence here, and same thing in this little section in through here and maybe over here. So I'm just making sure everything talks well together. Then I'm going to wipe wash and dry my brush. There's a little, to make these two areas look like they belong together. Washing and drying my brush. I'm putting yellow and white on my brush right now to get these little feathers right here to fluff out just a touch more. So a little yellow and white. That's going to give you a little bit more poofiness to the chest. So if yours looks a little flat, you can just pick up a little bit of yellow and white, and that will help to make sure that that has enough fullness in it. The tail, I'm just going to keep dark. I think I'm going to put a little bit of white on my brush. Maybe it's catching a little bit of highlight from the sun, so maybe a little highlight on the edge of that and through there, but nothing much, just something a little bit like that. Then I'm going to finish my head over here, so I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm putting cobalt blue on my brush. So the head has blue, and there's also a little blue on the wings around the other side of the bird. So I have cobalt blue on my brush right now. I'm overlapping these little black edges that we had put in place, something like this. I'll do the same thing over on this side. So just overlapping that cobalt blue so we have a little evidence of this color, and you can even bring this down quite a bit on this side, however, wherever your comfort zone is. I'm going to put this cobalt blue, overlap it onto this black on the back side of the head. So the black underneath really helps to make it nice and dimensional. And then I'm going to bring this around the top of the head. When I start cresting the tippy top of the head in through here, I'm going to start utilizing white with my blue in a second here. So I have blue. I'm going to put a tiny bit of white paint on my brush because I want these to merge in with that gray area. So I'm going to just I added a little bit of white onto my brush, just making sure that I've got a good amount of this in through here. And we're going to put a little bit down in through here as well, bring it in that face a little bit. I want this blue to travel pretty far into the face, but I don't want it to overpower. So I just picked up a little bit more white so it kind of naturally is blending in with that little gray area. And I think I'm going to pick up a little bit more gray paint because I think I want a little bit more gray right in through here. And now I'm going to wash and dry my brush and put some white paint on it. The white is going to give me these little feathers on the forehead. So I've got white paint on my brush and I'm just adding these little bits of feathers right on top of the forehead. Oh, I think I need a little bit more white so we can all see it. So a little bit of white, there we go. And if you can't see your white, that probably means that your undercolors are a little bit too light. So the white will look brighter if the surrounding colors are darker. So just as you're going through this process, if you're saying, ooh, my white doesn't look bright enough, it probably means that your color next to it is not dark enough. So that's just a little trick to knowing how to brighten it and darken it. I actually just added a little bit more black and gray on my brush so I can make this a little bit darker down in through here because I want my white to stand out just a little bit more. And in order to do that, I gotta put more darkness around it. So I'm just putting a little bit more darkness around it in through here. And then you can just wipe your brush off or wash it, and then you can pull in little pops of the white paint and you'll be able to see the white better. And then you just kind of keep fiddling with it. I'm thinking mine's looking super cute right now, so I don't know if I want to do anything else to it. But if you feel like you want to do anything else to yours, feel free to keep fiddling. We got to use our a large brush for the next step. So once you've got your adorable bird on here, I just picked up some blue. Once you've got your adorable bird on here, you can wash or put your small brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint some snow. So I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. You could certainly use your medium brush as well for this, but I like mine to look really fluffy, so I like my fluffy brush to do that. So I'm going to be initially using a bluish gray color as my base for my snow, and then I'll build the white fluffy snow on top of it. I'm going to have it kind of sitting in a lot of these trees as if it had snowed a few days ago, and it's just kind of sitting on the branches. And I'm also going to have some down at the bottom, maybe at the tops of some low-lying brush or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my blue and then I'm going to add gray to it. So I'll use a little bit of black and a little bit of white, and then you just spin it around. You can have it as light or as dark as you want. I don't want it too dark, so something in this vicinity will look good, maybe a little bit more white somewhere in through there. So this will end up looking like the shadowed area underneath the snow. So something like that is where I'm headed with mine, and then I just kind of wipe it off on the side of my palette. I decide where I want my snow to go, so I just kind of let my brush kind of give me these little chaotic little mounds of snow. I'm going to have it all kind of on the edge of this branch and through here. You can have it coming over the branch a little bit. I like to have it sitting inside the crevices of the branches, but you could certainly find more strategic places than I've got mine sitting, and kind of maybe creeping up the side of the tree a little bit. I'm definitely going to have some underneath my bird, but I don't want the snow to take over underneath my bird, so I'm just going to put a little tiny bit, just going to kind of tap my brush down in through here. And this is an excellent tool to use if you need to hide anything. So if any of your branches were like coming out in a way that you didn't want them to, you could certainly hide them with some strategically placed snow, or you could put bigger clumps of snow wherever you want. So I like to have mine, you know, in different thicknesses as they go through. Maybe we've got some up in through here. And again, I'm just kind of putting mine in the little crevices where I feel it would be sitting. I always say to myself when I'm making snow, if I were snow, where would I be sitting? And I would be nestled right in between them branches. So that's where it goes. While I still have this darker or this grayish blue on my brush, I'm going to put some down here, but again, don't want it to overpower. So I've got a lot of paint on my brush. I'm going to just wipe it off on my paper towel. And then I'm just going to kind of put in these little bits down at the bottom. I think I'm going to pick up also some black and brown because I really want this to look like it's down deep in the forest and just kind of give myself just a real light impression of maybe some low-lying, you know, brush of sorts or foliage or something that might have a little bit of snow on it, so something like that. I'll put a little bit lighter in a minute. I also want to give the impression that there might be some snow sitting in these back trees, so with very little paint on my brush I can just kind of tap in this color, and what this does is it ties or harmonizes the colors throughout the painting. So again, just really doing a tiny bit on these back trees, just again so I can steer the viewer to understand that it's all the same place and we've all got this, it's all got the same information. Now without washing my brush, I'm going to start picking up white, and you can just pick up white or you can pick up white plus that soft blue, and now I'm going to start putting on my brighter snow. So I like this to look like it makes sense, so I just kind of dab it in the top portion of the snow that's lying down, and then just kind of blend it in a little bit. And of course you can have yours in whatever, you know, way that you want. If you want yours to be brighter, then by all means use more white, get it to make sense, get it to have that, you know, fresh snowfall look to it. But I like it to kind of blend in a little bit with a bluer snow, so that way it looks like it's got some good dimension on it. But if you like yours all nice and bright white, feel free to do it that way. And then I'm just going to kind of dabble it in wherever I want it to go. Snow's beautiful because you can really just get it to do whatever you've imagined it to do. It can really take on a lot of different looks. So use your imagination or your experience with snow to get it to look whatever way you want. You can even have it dripping down a little bit. And when I go down to the forest floor, I'm not going to do a lot, because I know that I want it to be a little bit darker down there. So I'm just, again, going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel so I have just the remnants of those lighter colors, and that's too much. So just keep wiping it until you have as little as you want, and that little, there we go. Now I got a little bit on here, and then I just kind of keep dotting and dashing and wiggling my brush so I can get the impression of some snow just sitting on some stuff down here, and then keep fiddling with it all you want. We're going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got all of your snow on here, you can put your large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to use black paint. I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I think I'm going bottom right on this one. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or your full name or a symbol or whatever you want for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a beautiful winter landscape, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.